The return to the city seemed like just another professional trip, 3 days scheduled between lectures and formal cocktails. But all it took was a coffee, a familiar face, an unspoken word, for the past to surge with force, bringing to the surface everything she believed she had left behind. Among streets soaked with memories and unexpected encounters, she would discover that certain mistakes cannot be erased by distance or time, and that sometimes it's necessary to return exactly to the starting point to truly move forward. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. The coffee warmed in the porcelain mug that Madeline held with both hands, as if she needed that heat to get through the rainy morning. From her hotel room, she observed the city she once called home, now blurred by the water that ran down the window. 10 years was enough time to erase any trace of her from those streets, she thought. She had crossed an ocean, built a solid career, and learned to live with her own ghosts. But now, back for the publishing conference, she felt as if every mile travelled had been in circles, bringing her right back to the starting point. Only 3 days, she murmured to herself. I speak tomorrow, network at the cocktail, and then I go back home. Home. The word had a strange taste. The apartment she had lived in for 8 years abroad was functional, even elegant, with well-tended plants and bookshelves organised by colour, a little quirk she developed to maintain control of something in her life. But it lacked the sense of belonging she had felt in the small townhouse she shared with Sebastian when they both still wrote for Pulse magazine, before everything fell apart. Sebastian, 10 years later, and his name still caused that pang in her chest. The phone vibrated, cutting through her thoughts. It was Jennifer, her former colleague from the editorial team. Maddie, I can't believe you're here. I need to see you. Coffee in the lobby in 15 minutes. Madeline hesitated. She hadn't planned on meeting anyone she knew before the conference. She came prepared for professional smiles and superficial conversations, not to dive into memories. But perhaps it was better this way, to face the past now in order to move on with the present. Of course I'll be there. The hotel lobby buzzed with the typical energy of corporate events, people in dark suits with colourful badges, laptops open on corner tables, animated conversations about market trends. Madeline felt instantly at home in this professional environment. It was here that she knew she belonged now. Madeline Parker, 38, Director of Digital Content, international speaker. A successful woman, far from the insecure young girl who had left that town. Jennifer appeared like a whirlwind of red hair and tight hugs. Look at you. You look like a movie executive. That haircut is wonderful. Madeline smiled, genuinely happy to see a familiar face that didn't bring pain. You haven't changed at all, Jen. Oh, my dear, I have indeed. 3 kids later, I need more coffee than blood in my veins. Jennifer laughed, guiding her to a table in the corner. But tell me about yourself. I've read your articles in Digital Era. You've become exactly who you always wanted to be. The words touched Madeline more deeply than she expected. Who had she always wanted to be? There was a time when she dreamed of a house full of books and children, sporadic travels, and a more intimate style of writing, not just corporate. But those memories belonged to another life. I'm good, Jen. The work is rewarding. I travel a lot and meet interesting people. And anyone special? Madeline thought of Thomas, the literature professor who had tried to get close years ago. Of Miguel, the photographer she had dated for a few months. Of all the connections she had made and let go when they started to demand more than she was willing to give. No one permanent. You know how difficult it is to balance career and relationship. Jennifer nodded, but her eyes showed an understanding that was unsettling. And around here? How is everyone? Madeline changed the subject, trying to sound casual. Jennifer's expression shifted. It became cautious, like someone testing the water's temperature before diving in. Well, a lot has changed. Pulse was incorporated by a larger group. Half of the old team left. And Madeline hesitated, feeling her mouth dry. Sebastian. The name came out quieter than she intended, as if it was still forbidden to say it out loud. Jennifer sighed, placing her hand over hers. He's doing well. He's still writing. He won that International Investigative Journalism Award 3 years ago, the series about endangered Indigenous communities. She paused. He got married again, Maddie. Madeline nodded, forcing a smile. It was expected. 10 years was long enough. She had also moved on, in a way. I'm happy for him, she said, and was surprised to find that part of her truly felt that way. Jennifer bit her lip, looking uncomfortable. You know who Sebastian married, right? The cautious tone made Madeline freeze. A chill ran down her spine. No. He married Rachel. Can you believe it? She said she was only consoling him after the divorce. But, well, you know how these things are. The world stopped. The chatter of the lobby vanished. The coffee in the cup in front of her became just a blurred brown stain. Rachel, her friend, her confidant, the person who had been by her side through every doubt, every insecurity, the person who had subtly planted seeds of distrust about Sebastian. Frequent phrases that Rachel used to say, "He's a free spirit, Maddie. Men like that don't know how to love completely. I've heard about the photographers who work with him on those trips. Gorgeous, they say. If he really loved you, he wouldn't leave so easily, don't you think?" Every phrase, every insinuation, every look of false concern resurfaced like a high-speed film. And now, Rachel was Sebastian's wife. The woman who had undermined her marriage was living the life that should have been hers. Madeline didn't notice when she stood up. She didn't feel her legs give way, but suddenly she was on the floor, on her knees, in the middle of the hotel's elegant lobby, with tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. Maddie! Jennifer knelt beside her, holding her shoulders. Breathe, please. But there wasn't enough air in the world to fill the void that had just opened in her chest. 10 years wasted. 10 years running from a betrayal that she had helped create, believing the poisoned words of someone who claimed to be her friend. The hotel room seemed smaller now, suffocating. Madeline had pulled herself together enough to thank Jennifer for her help and retreat, claiming a sudden migraine. It wasn't a lie. Her head was throbbing with the weight of the revelations. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she looked at the cell phone in her hands. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, wanting to type his name on social media, wanting to see how his life would be now. She wanted to see Rachel by his side, to confirm with her own eyes the betrayal she had suffered. But something stopped her. What right did she have now? What could she do besides disturb the life Sebastian had built? The cell phone slipped from her hands onto the bed. She walked to the window and opened the curtains. The rain had stopped, leaving the city with that peculiar glow that appears after a storm. Down below, hurried people went about their lives, oblivious to the earthquake that had just devastated her inner world. Madeline felt a strange calm taking over her, a clarity she hadn't experienced in a long time. Maybe it was the shock, or maybe it was simply the truth finally emerging from a well of doubts. She remembered Sebastian as he was, kind, passionate, with that transparent gaze that seemed incapable of hiding any secrets. She recalled the nights when he returned from trips, exhausted but vibrant, sharing every detail, every discovery. How his eyes shone when he talked about people he had met, landscapes he had photographed, and how those same eyes dimmed when she received him with coldness, with distrust. The most painful memory came last, the day he asked with a broken voice who was poisoning her against him. She remembered looking away, unable to admit that she was allowing Rachel's words to overshadow what she saw with her own eyes. Out of pride, out of fear, out of insecurity, she chose to believe the worst. The phone rang, pulling her back to the present. It was the conference organizer, confirming details of her speech for the next day. Madeline responded mechanically, thanked them and hung up. Her half-open suitcase showed neatly folded clothes, the laptop with the presentation ready, the shoes that matched perfectly with each outfit. Everything organized, controlled. Like her life over the past 10 years. A life built on escape, on the fear of trusting, on the shame of admitting that perhaps she had made the biggest mistake of her existence. She decided she needed some air. She grabbed her coat and left the room. The park was only a few blocks from the hotel. Madeline walked leisurely, observing how the city had changed and yet paradoxically remained the same. New buildings, new shops, but the same pace, the same unpredictable late autumn sky. She sat on a wooden bench, damp from the recent rain. In front of her, a small lake reflected the clouds that moved slowly. An elderly couple fed ducks, laughing like teenagers as the birds squabbled over pieces of bread. Madeline watched their clasped hands, the casual gestures of affection that only decades of togetherness can build. She always liked this park. The voice behind her made her heart stop for a second. She knew that tone, that cadence. Turning slowly, she saw Sebastian. 10 years had been kind to him. The dark hair now showed grey streaks at the temples, some wrinkles marked the corners of his eyes, but the look, that intense and honest gaze, remained the same. "How did you know I would be here?" Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "Jennifer called me. She said you had spoken with her, and that you didn't know about Rachel. I didn't intend to look for you. I imagined you would prefer it that way." Madeline nodded, not knowing what to say. The silence stretched between them, not exactly uncomfortable, but laden with memories. "Congratulations on the award," she finally said. "I read the series about Indigenous communities. It was extraordinary." A small smile appeared on his face. "Thank you. And congratulations on your career. I've been following your work from afar." The idea that he still cared enough to follow her journey caused something to break inside her. The tears she thought she had exhausted in the hotel lobby came back with renewed force. "Seb, I'm so sorry. For everything." The words came out broken. "I didn't trust you. I preferred to listen to other people. How could I have been so blind?" He approached, sitting next to her on the bench but still maintaining a respectful distance. "That's life, Madeline. An eternal learning process." "Do you love Rachel?" The question slipped out before she could contain it. Sebastian looked at the lake ahead, thoughtful. "Yes, we built something. We have a 5-year-old son, Noah." A son. Sebastian was a father now. The pain Madeline felt was different. It wasn't jealousy or anger, but a profound sense of loss for a future that never existed. "I'm happy for you," she said, and part of her truly was. "You deserve to be happy." "And you, Madeline? Did you find what you were looking for on the other side of the world?" The question caught her off guard. What exactly had she been searching for when she ran away? Peace? A new beginning? Or just distance from her own guilt? "I found a version of myself that can survive," she replied honestly. "But I don't know if it's the version that makes me happy." Sebastian nodded, as if he understood perfectly. "You know what I've learned over the years? That happiness is not a destination. It's a daily practice, a choice we make even when it hurts." Madeline felt a wave of admiration for this man who, despite everything, could still speak with such kindness. Without resentment, without bitterness. "How can you not hate me, Sebastian?" asked Madeline. "I tried in the beginning," he admitted with a half-smile. "But hatred is too heavy a burden to carry for too long, and maybe we needed to go through all this to become who we are today." They stayed silent for a few minutes, watching the ducks, the clouds, the movement of the park. It wasn't an awkward silence, but a contemplative one, as if they were both finally making peace with the past. "I need to go," he said, standing up. "I promised Noah I would be home for dinner." Madeline nodded, feeling that a cycle was closing. Not in the way she had imagined, not with clear answers or grandiose revenges, but with something more valuable: understanding. "Thank you for coming," she said. It meant a lot. Sebastian smiled, that smile that had once been her safe harbour. "Good luck with the lecture tomorrow. I know it will be brilliant." And then he was gone, walking down the same gravel path they had strolled along so many times in the past. Madeline remained seated, feeling the tears dry on her face. She felt strangely light, as if a burden she had carried for 10 years had finally been lifted. There was no more anger or resentment, just a sweet melancholy for what might have been, and the silent promise that from that moment on, she would trust her own heart more. The sun was beginning to set when she finally stood up. Tomorrow would be a new day. When Madeline returned to the hotel, the city was already enveloped in the silent blue of early evening. The way back seemed different, not because of the route, but because of the way she now walked, lighter, more present. There was something in her chest that she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the sterile peace of escape, but the true kind, the one born from acceptance. Upon entering the room, she left her coat on the armchair and faced the still open laptop screen with the slides prepared for the conference. The title of the lecture blinked in the upper corner: Trends and Challenges of Digital Content in Emerging Markets. But now it sounded shallow, sterile, too far from what she carried inside herself. She closed the file. She opened a new one. She typed firmly, "Choose to trust those who make you feel good." It was instinctive, almost like a release. But the more she looked at that sentence, the more it made sense. It was what she needed to hear 10 years ago when she allowed other people's doubts to suffocate the voice of her own heart. It was what she ignored on the nights she chose fear over listening, insecurity over dialogue. The new lecture came to life in just a few hours. No graphics, no cold analyses, just sincere words, structured with the same precision she always applied to corporate texts, but now guided by something more human: vulnerability. The next morning, as she stepped onto the stage, Madeline was different. The woman in an impeccable blazer was still there, but now there was something more in her eyes, something that couldn't be taught in courses or manuals. There was truth. "Trust is not something that is guaranteed to us," she began. "It is something we choose every day, not just in others, but in ourselves. And sometimes the words you say to someone else need to be the same that you should have said to yourself years ago." The room, crowded, remained in absolute silence. The kind of silence that doesn't weigh, it embraces. She spoke about how trust can be slowly corroded, not only by great betrayals but by the small doubts we cultivate softly. She talked about friendships that wound under the guise of care, about the importance of looking into the eyes of those who walk beside you, and especially about having the courage to listen to your own heart. "Choose to trust those who make you feel good," she repeated at the end, "and if that person is yourself, even better." The lecture was a success. The response surprised even the event organisers. Invitations for interviews, publishing proposals, dozens of messages from people saying how much they felt seen. A few months later, the content became a book, a personal, almost intimate work, but one that found a place on many people's shelves and in their lives. But none of that was the most important. The most important thing is that Madeline changed. She didn't become someone else. She just returned to being who she had left behind. And this time, without fear of trusting. Not just anyone, but those who truly made her feel good. And for the first time in a long time, that included the woman she saw in the mirror. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.